Thanks for joining us once again, Daniel Jordan. We are here to talk about Rhino's Revenge, the debut album from Status Quo's John Rhino Edwards, released 25 years ago on Eagle Records. Tell us, Daniel, what are your memories of this release?
Memories of the release, I would say, obviously, 25 years ago, it might have been would have been through the Quo website, I would have thought. And it was a bit of a, oh, bloody hell, Rhino's doing a solo album. It just was a bit unexpected. I think it was publicised about 1999 that he was doing some solo work on a solo album. And I just seem to remember the excitement of going to buy it. It really was something, apart from Francis doing King of the Doghouse, and obviously there's Andrew back in the 70s, there was never nothing of that era that was something that wasn't Status Quo by a band member. So it was really exciting. Obviously it was Eagle Records, which was obviously, it might have tied with Under the Influence, I guess. Yeah. Maybe why he got the deal at the time. I don't know if that's true or not, but obviously. And it was just a really bizarre, unexpected turn. I remember going to buy it in HMV. And obviously back then it was A to Z of, the albums. And going straight to look for, Edwards or Rhino's, R. Where the hell is it? And then they literally just plugged it in the Status Quo section straight away. And I thought, I don't know if that was intentional or if that was the idea, but on the actual CD, it actually does state on the CD, the debut album from Status Quo's basis. So maybe that's why they've done it that way. But yeah, really, I remember at the time of it coming out, personally, I was recovering from a broken wrist. So I was literally, strapped up like that. I remember getting the bus, I was only, what would have been, 17, getting the bus to Liverpool City Centre, HMV. The excitement back in the day of going to go, oh, I've got an album, I've just gone and got a new album, and then you literally just run home, you bang it on the CD player at home. It was, I miss those days in space of the excitement of going to buy a physical new release and put it on.
Indeed. I remember those days relatively well. So this album was produced by Mike Paxman, who also produced Under the Influence, and it's got a smattering of guest stars from the Quo universe, including Andy Bown, Rick Parfitt, Francis Rossi, even Judy Zook makes an appearance on backing vocals on one track, who of course Rhino played with in the early 80s with Jeff Rich. And we start this with Jungle Love, which opens it, and I had forgotten just how atmospheric and anthemic it kind of felt when it really kicks in after all that crowd noise and stuff. I mean, it's like the start of a show.
Yeah, it just gives the impression, doesn't it, of a live gig. Yeah, it's like you'd think listen to a live album. As soon as it comes on, it's got that. As soon as the guitars kick in and the drums, you're just singing that big "wow" from Rhino.
Yeah,
really strong track, Jungle Love, and I mean even now it's still in his live set with Rhino's Revenge as the band. Really good opening song as well for an album. As you say, the atmospherics of the track, just something about it. You think should you start an album with one of your strongest tracks? Most definitely. Because I think that is one of the strongest tracks on the album, and it just kicks it off. It just immediately just draws you in. Right, this is going to be a good album.
And there are, as there are with a lot of tracks on this album, it doesn't just kind of plod along, does it? It kind of has little twists and turns. Like there's moments of jeopardy in there.
Yeah, and I'd love to ask him the question. Actually, the middle section with a female voice. Who is it? It's just a fantastic track. And this has got Rick on it, obviously, as well, on this track. It's one of the ones that features Rick.
Yeah.
Jungle Love, which I often wonder how Rick Parfitt played on this, because it's not really a typical, you think Rick's the kind of track to play on. It's not your typical, Quo-style song either. So, but obviously he's credited on the album as playing on it, which is interesting.
I guess not. I mean, the thing with, I mean, that riff at the beginning has sort
True.
of Quo-like things on it.
Yeah.
I should note on here that in the booklet, Jungle Love, it's credited, so Space Girl is credited as Jeannie.
Jeannie, yeah. Who's Jeannie? I wonder who Jeannie is.
Well, let us know in the comments if you know, or
who's Jeannie,
or give us an email, Rhino. Just let us know. Come on, talk about.
I mean, on the track, on the actual what I like about this album as well is how it does give you a breakdown of each track by track.
Yeah.
The personnel that are playing on it. So it's Charlie Morgan on drums on this one, who I remember him when Matt Letley was leaving Quo. I remember the forums all saying that there's going to be a guy called Charlie Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where the rumor, possibly just because of that he's on this album, it might have been just one of them things because Matt came from knowing Rhino. I remember thinking, strange, but you never know. And there's a guy called Steve Baird who plays guitar on this album. He's on this track. He was in Kim Wilde's band, obviously probably with Rhino, I guess, back in the day. But he passed away as well. Steve Baird, he was quite a known guitar player. He passed away in 2016, which was a shame. But yeah, he was a known player as well.
This is something I think that carries over from each of his albums, that it does feel sometimes like Rhino and guests.
Yeah. It could be called Rhino and his chums.
Maybe. So the next track, as you've already mentioned, is Space Maker, which again has got a very sort of Quo-like riff on it. Yeah,
it does. I would say out of the album, personally, it's one of my favourite songs on the album. I think it just has something about it that's obviously the title Space Maker, and I always thought it gives like a vibe of, I don't know, you could say the word cosmic or a feel. There's a bit of like effects on it that make you feel like it could be kind of set in space. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but it kind of has that feel. I do think this is a very strong track. And again, it's an often played live track by him as well.
I think his vocals on this are very strong. They work for the song.
Yeah, because he has got a very unique. I mean, this isn't a criticism, but Rhino has got compared to like Francis or Rick, you're thinking of Status Quo, he's got a much different tone of voice, and this suits his voice really well. It's a strong track. Lyrically, it's quite good as well, I would say. John always does have quite, clever lyrics. I've often said that, about other people in the past having smart lyrics. He does have quite smart lyrics at times.
Yeah.
See me fly miles beyond the sky. Simple, but it fits in with being, off to space you go.
Yeah, it works. Track 3 on here is Shame, which I was surprised by. I wasn't sure if I heard it before. Is it one that you've spun many a time?
Do you know what? It's a track that it's not bad, but it's not a favourite on the album. I mean, straight away, it's straight in. She never closes her legs or opens her mind. You think, Jesus, who's this? Who's he talking about now? Yeah, I remember seeing this. I was lucky enough to see Rhino's Revenge in the early days of it being a live band, I think 2001, and this was in the set.
Yeah.
I kind of think of it as a bit of a filler track. It's not one of the strongest tracks on the album for me. It's not a personal favourite. I just think it just lacks a little bit of something, a bit of oomph for me.
I like that main riff and the way that the bass kind of goes with it. Yeah. And I like the chorus of it. I think it's it's one that gets in there, and I love the kind of overemphasis of shame. There's something about it gets in your head.
Yeah, it's very blokey. I think it's got like a very macho thing about it. I think this song, something about I always think of being macho. I think when they're seeing it live, and when he's playing it live, you got the backup vocals doing the shame vocals. It does sound quite ballsy live. Probably sounds better live, actually, than it does on record. I would say this track, the few times I've heard it played live.
Well, let's move on to the next track, which is Don't Come Around Here No More, which had sort of a Britpoppy vibe to me. It sort of reminded me of sort of that mid-90s, like Blur, Oasis, Suede, cast type thing going on. And it does go on a different track because, there are tracks on this album that are very sort of Quo-like, obviously. Either he's worked on them with an idea of them being in Quo, or like it's just in there, whereas this feels like something different.
Yeah, most definitely. It's, as you say, the track starts off with kind of 3 rockier songs, and this kind of just takes it a little bit lower down.
Yeah.
And in feel. But it's a really, I actually think it's a clever track. Again, it just shows for me again, it shows Rhino as talents in some ways, that he can, people just assume it was maybe Status Quo and the typical stuff he can do with Quo, but this shows his strengths as well. Yeah. That he can go off and do something that's a bit off the Quo track, if you want to call it that way. Yeah, clever track. And interestingly, when you look at the notes of this as on the album cover, only 3 people play on the album, which is Rhino, Mike Paxman, and Steve Baird on guitars.
Right.
Which is, the construction of that song, just 3 people making that track up is quite good. I know it's all studio and it's different parts all mixed together, but I always think that's quite good. I always remember reading that back in the day, thinking there's only 3 of them actually playing all on this record. You think it's a massive band, as one playing it.
What you mean is they've managed to get a big sound from just 3 people.
Really big sound, from the 3 of them who've done it. And it's got quite a catchy chorus as well. As it's one of them songs that the chorus just takes it somewhere else, and then it comes back to the verses in a different feel.
I kind of like the sort of tongue-in-cheek nature that Rhino has throughout this album. There's something vocally about it and lyrically as well. There's always sort of a slight tongue-in-cheek manner about it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that kind of is what it's like. It's very much tongue-in-cheek, and sometimes it's a bit autobiographical, I would say, from his stuff. But it is kind of like current of what's going on maybe in the world, what he feels, what he sees.
Yeah.
We look at stuff like, just something like Obstruction Day. That was something that he's seen with Rick on the day, and bang, he wrote a song about it. And I do sometimes think with sometimes Rhino's Revenge solo stuff, I think, what was the trigger for certain songs, what set him off.
Yeah. It's usually a chain of events, isn't it? There's a spark of inspiration, and then it gets worked on. Let's go on to track number 5 with Republican.
I remember seeing this originally. So when I seen Rhino's Revenge for the first time live in 2001, it was a 4-piece band.
Yeah.
And it was Rhino, obviously Rhino was there. Matt was the drummer. On guitar was a chap called Dave Goods. He's on the album, somewhere on this album. And a chap called Mike Caswell. And they'd done this track. Amazing. It really, I always think this is one of them tracks that should have been or could have been on a Quo album. And I'd have let Rhino sing it as well as the Quo track. It's just it's a fantastic track. Tongue-in-cheek as well, I would say, lyrically.
Well, depending on when he wrote it, it could have been on Under the Influence, for example, and that would have predated his first lead vocal on a Quo album by, 4 years or something?
3 or 4, yeah.
And then even further, you're talking like 8 years, because the first original track was In Search of the Fourth Chord on lead vocal. So, yeah, possibly. Like you say, tongue-in-cheek, sort of satire, I think. Yeah,
and it has 3 of Quo on the track as well. Matt, Rhino, and Rick's on this one as well, which is... straight away you just think of Quo, don't you? Yeah. And at the time of this coming out, what I do remember the excitement was with this album When you listen to the tracks with Charlie Morgan on drums, this has got Matt on it. You can clearly see the different type of drummers, and I think the drums from each drummer, whether it's done intentionally or just how they play, the drums mix sounds so different.
Wow.
I would say, you listen to Charlie Morgan's drum and to Matt's, I think Charlie Morgan's drum sounds a bit more polished, whereas Matt sounds a bit more raucous and, live sounding, I would say, natural sounding.
And of course, there was only like a year or two, well, not even that, where Matt joined the band.
He just joined the band, yeah. So I think at the time, there was only, there was no actual recording of Matt with Status Quo. There was no official recordings with him of anything of him playing on. So it was kind of the first time you got to hear Matt, unless you see them live in his early gigs with the band on the 2000 tour. It was the first time of hearing Matt play on record.
Yeah.
I suppose, which was exciting. Because I remember at the time thinking he sounds very different to Jeff Rich, even on record. Which you think, he had I always think Matt had on this record, a more rockier feeling, more natural.
You think possibly based on the performances on here, perhaps more suited to Quo at that point?
Yeah. I definitely think they nailed it on the head when they picked him. I mean, I don't actually know if it's, again, this one for Rhino to answer the question, I suppose. When these tracks were recorded, was Matt already in Status Quo? Hence why he'd done the kind of the Quo-y sounding tracks, or was something where he already recorded before he joined Quo? I wonder. I really wonder.
I mean, that is fan speculation, which is, which is something that we do sometimes on the podcast. It's always interesting to think that one day I'd love to ask somebody involved, like, these exact questions. But you're exactly right. You're sort of putting it forward that it was perhaps like a training ground. Or some kind of test.
I do wonder, because maybe he thought, I've got this drum, he just played on 2 tracks of mine, perfect for Status Quo when Jeff Rich left. We'll try him. I often wonder, it was, I'd look, daft as it might sound, as nerdy as it might sound, I do wonder, was Matt in Quo at this point? Because he hadn't been in the band long when this came out, so it would have been, I'm guessing, towards the end of the actual recording of the album before it was released, if it was.
Well, hopefully I can get an answer to that question one day. Yeah. But before that, let's get on to the next track, and let's take it all the way down. And I must say, I thought this was some kind of mistake. I thought I'd left open like a window or something. I thought the CD had stopped when Two Suns came on, because it has a,
it's strange. It's never. I mean, it shows he's a really good bass player. Obviously,
yeah.
There's actually a video of him I think it's on YouTube, of him playing it at the London Guitar Show, and there's 2 bass players playing it. There's 2 of them on bass playing this song. I've never understood why it's there myself. I just think it makes no sense. It's a bit like Na 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 on Dog of Two Heads in the middle. The little short section, didn't you think? It's just, I just don't understand why it's there. I mean, it does no harm. Well, there's when you say about filler tracks, that's what you call a real filler track.
I mean, it's a little sort of, it's a bit eccentric, isn't it? It's sort of a little, what's the word? A slight break in the middle, I guess. I mean, it's listed in here as basses, Rhino, so I assume he's playing with himself on that. And of course drums, it's a drum machine by the looks of it, because it's marked as Roland, which means Roland drum machine. I'm assuming.
Roland drum machine on keyboard. Do you know what just sort of just sprung to mind then? It reminds me of like a corny cabaret riff.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine an old-fashioned cabaret band with a drummer and an organ.
Yeah.
like a fairground melody or something. Maybe do you know what? Or like an advert for the TV, or an old fashioned. There's the first half, right? And there's some kind of little ditty, and then bang into the next track we go. Maybe that was the intention.
Maybe so. Sort of reminds me of background music in a old film or something. Like just something. Music. Yeah. But it is really enjoyable, and I do like the fact it gives the album some light and shade. It's not all sort of all rocking and up tempo. Let's move from what some might term as the strange one to the literal strange one.
For me, it's a very strong track. When I think of this track, I think of when I've seen them do it live more than the studio. Because I know when I've seen them live, I've seen them a lot, loads of times live, but I remember seeing, again, to go back to the early version of the band, and it was about 9 minutes long because they had a load of guitar solos in the middle.
Yeah.
But obviously, they've cut it right down for the album. I think it's a very strong track. Again, it's a. I remember seeing the word once describing this album as an eclectic mix. And I would say it has about an eclectic mix of styles in some ways and bits and bobs on this album. Again, 4 players on it, which includes Dave Goods, who was actually in the original Rhino Revenge band.
Yeah.
Paxman, Charlie Morgan, and Rhino. I do think it's a strong track. I've always had a soft spot for the strange one. It's quite a catchy little guitar riff as well.
Yes, I think so, and a memorable hook as well.
Yeah, I think it draws you in. Yeah, you want coloured candy kisses, the world to speak your name. Clever.
Yeah, interesting lyrics.
I've often thought of there's just clever. I think with Rhino's stuff lyrically, we've often talked about Status Quo's lyrics being sometimes a bit off the cuff and make no sense. But I think Rhino's always kind of if you stop and think or listen to what the words might mean or how it flows, clever. I've always said Rhino's a very clever lyricist.
Yes, I would agree with that. Track number 8 is one of my favourites on the track, and it's not for the reasons that you might think. Spend, spend, spend.
I think, again, like Republican, amazing track. Obviously, it's got Francis Rossi on this one. Basically, you've got, at the current version, you've got 3 of Quo and the producer on this one as well. It should have been on the Quo album. And I would worry if Quo done this, it would be lost. As like a B-side, potentially, because it's such a strong track. Really strong track. I've often said people rave about Bad News being out. Quo should have played it live, and they've missed a trick. And I've often thought Spend, Spend, Spend and Republican, if Quo would have done them, I think they would have fell into that category of great tracks of Status Quo that have like hidden or hidden gems, if you want to call them. But I think it's a really good track. Francis Rossi's solo, this is great as well. Great playing.
Yes, I think so. And Rhino's vocals on here. I mean, the kind of overdriven vocals as he's singing 800% or whatever it is in that lyric. The real high energy of it, and you almost don't see it coming the first time that you hear it. You don't see it coming. It just like comes at you, and it again falls under that thing of like satire, sort of satirical, like comedy humor, tongue-in-cheekness.
Yeah, I mean, I always laugh at where there's things that not make you laugh, but make you think, where did they come up with the idea of, mentioning the consumer act? Just it's lyrically, I think, so good. Paragraph 9/11/1083, it's dead on black and white for all the country to see. You think, wow, it's quite fastly spoken and sung as well, isn't it? The track,
it
must have been a real hard one to do. I mean, I've seen them do it live, and when you're trying to sing this one. But it just, again, it's, not compared to Status Quo, but it's hard not to, because obviously you've got that, match drumming, I think if you got 10 drummers to play a certain track, I think most Quo fans will be able to pick up Matt Letley, just by his technique and the sound he has playing. And I just think Matt's drumming on this as well is fantastic. I think it's a lost track, this. I do think it's one of them. I wish Rhino now would do this live. It'd be a good song for him to do live.
Yeah, but all those lyrics.
It's a three-piece band now, so it might be a bit harder with just one guitar. I don't know, but really, I would say, personally, in my top 3 off the album.
It's certainly one of my favourites on here, but to go back to the lyrics for a moment, I've got them in front of me, and it's like a paragraph, isn't it? And no wonder he hasn't played it live. That's a lot to remember. That
he did play it live. I have seen him do it live, and I'm thinking, do you have the words written down somewhere on the stage? But it's even the ending, the end lyrics, it kind of goes off to end. It's really fast, and it kind of draws you in as well. I don't know what it's about this track. I've always kind of you kind of get not lost, but you kind of just get into the track, and your head just goes.
Yeah,
you really just get caught into it. Yeah, I do think this is one of his, out of all the stuff he's done as Rhino's Revenge and solo, this is one of his, for me, stronger tracks, just because it's so catchy.
Yeah, and it has something to say as well. And as a classic country fan, I do love his little nod to 16 Tons, most famously sung, of course, by Tennessee Ernie Ford in there. It's a nice little nod. Rocker is the next track, and lyrically, it's perhaps not as complex as Spend.
No, when I think of Rocker, and since hearing it for the first time, Rocker, I don't know why, but the intro guitar riff and then the drums come in always reminds me of the Rolling Stones, and I don't know why, but it just does.
That's true.
It's got
yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Is it one of my favourites? No. It's catchy, but it's one of the weaker songs of the album, I would say. Andrew Bound on this as well, which is interesting.
Yes.
You can't really hear much piano on it or organ, keyboard, I don't think. What makes me laugh on it is that the brass on it, the brass section on this, which is quite good, which is quite different. The Rhino horns, as they were called, which I think was really, I can just imagine that quite if you had a big band, on stage, the Rhino horns, perfect name for a brass section.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not one of my favourites personally, Rocker. I've just never been I always think of music, songs, it's got to catch me and, take me into it, and I get lost in it somewhere. I'm not saying it's a bad song, it's not a bad song, and I'll listen to it. If I put the album on, I'll listen to it. But it's not one that actually, for me, just gets me and takes me in.
I mean, I have to say, in the credits down here, Rock Egg.
Yeah.
Rock Egg, played by Rhino. I'm not sure I can hear a rock egg, but I'm going to have to listen more intently.
Is it a hard-boiled egg, a soft-boiled egg?
Yeah.
I think a rock egg, I'm going to assume is a shaker egg of some description, like a percussion egg. I would think it. I've always thought of a rock egg as just being some. I'll have to Google it. I don't know. I think that's what it might be. I think the Rhino horns on this as well. That I recognise the names. I think they were from. I say they could be from Kim Wilde's backing band as well, possibly.
Right.
Steve Hamilton, Andy Hamilton,
Richard Sidwell.
I seem to remember seeing their names somewhere with another act. I remember thinking Rhino. I remember just seeing the name and going, that's something to do with Rhino. You just remember the names, think Rhino's Revenge. It could be Kim Wilde, it could be something else I've seen, but I remember seeing like a link where Rhino and them previously have worked together. Might even be something like Dexys or Climax Blues Band, I can't remember, but obviously it's all friends in it.
Yeah, the fact that he's bringing kind of all four corners of his world, it
Yeah.
seems, into this. One last word on Rocker. In retrospect, when I hear Rocker, it kind of reminds me of the song Backbone, written decades later, obviously,
Yeah.
off the Backbone
Yeah.
album. I think it's in the same key.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, it's in B, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of that. It's another one that Quo would have possibly had a go at some point, Rocker, but unfortunately it would probably fall under B-side or filler track.
Yeah, B-side bonus track. You think of Quo of that era, it'd be a B-side or a second track, extra additional track.
Yeah.
One thing that I do like about this is when he does like that kicks like a mule. Clever, stupidly simple stuff, but you know, it's something that makes you go, oh, okay, that's you know. You remember that just comes to my mind, and what standout part of this track makes me go, yeah.
Yeah. Mine or Mine is the penultimate track on this album, and it's another autobiographical song for Rhino. I feel like he's talked about this. I feel like it's on his live album. It's another slower pace for Mr. Edwards. What do you think of it?
So I remember him saying it about his wife. I've been to many gigs and he mentions it as being about his wife, which would make sense. She's mine, all mine. I actually think it's a very good song. I know the album's quite ballsy and rocky, but there's this softer one. I think what I think he should have done with this album was the last track, Get a Life, and you got Mine All Mine. I would have switched them round and ended on Mine All Mine. I think it would have been a bit like a This Is Me on Party Ain't Over Yet. It would have ended it, at a slower pace and a bit autobiographical in a way.
Yeah.
I do think it's a very strong. I do like this track. I remember seeing him when he's done it live as well. The the crowd, always give the bits on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good live track. For that reason, it works well as a live track. Although it's a slowy, it works well live as well. For that reason, the crowd give the
That is, like you say, it's a slower one, but it does work and it does show his versatility. And I love the way that it leads into that chorus, and then we have the Mine or Mine, which of course by the end it sort of rises to the top, and it leads us.
It builds up on the track.
Yeah, it does. It builds up quite nicely and very good live as well. And that track leads us, although you say that perhaps they should have switched them round, into Get a Life, which once more, I feel tongue firmly in cheek, slightly ballsy lyrically, and different musically.
Yeah. I've seen them do this live a few times, Get a Life. For me, I always think of it being like a bar, a blues bar.
Yeah.
A man on the microphone, I know why she loves me, doing that whole bluesy style. It would fit really well in that style of music. I actually think it's a very strong track. Get a Life. I don't dislike it. It's not, not the worst track on the album. What is good as well, this one that's got Judy Tezuka on it as well.
Yes.
Somewhere in the vocals, which I suppose would have been if they were releasing any kind of single or any kind of promo, they could have put her name to it, that she's on the album somewhere, because obviously she's an established act still going as well. I do think it's a good song. It kind of, what I always thought was strange with this album is that the two softer songs end the album.
Yes.
Rather than just like dot on one, maybe, in the first five. Then one of the, if you think of two halves, one in the first half, one in the second half, but to end it on the two. I mean, they're not weak tracks at all. They're both, good solid tracks. I always thought it was just strange at the end of it. There's some real big highs of rocky stuff.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just slowly descends into like the slower stuff.
But it seems like he gets more autobiographical as he goes along. and it gets more and more personal and more varied.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. Just get a life and move on up. Again, it's one of them things. We don't know what it's actually about. What is thinking behind the actual lyrics. Be honest, what's we say this many times with Quo stuff or Francis Rossi solo stuff. What's the inspiration behind Get a Life? What you need to get a life? Him. So when he knows, I've often wondered with this track, Get a Life. Wonder who or what it's about.
Yes, I wonder, and that closes Rhino's Revenge, which is 25 years old this year. It took him 15 years to release a second album, and compared to that one, I think this one is a lot more solid. Is like the second one is quite varied, and there's lots of different styles and different things. This one feels quite cohesive to me.
Yeah, I think this is more true to Rhino's Revenge.
Right.
As a band, even live now, I think there's more. There's some tracks on Rhino's Revenge 2 that are really good, but I think Rhino's Revenge 2 is a bit like the songs on. There's like one that reminds me a bit of a gangster song.
Yeah.
All the Girls Love a Bastard.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Jesus, I'm going, what the hell is this? It just completely threw me. But this is more, as a music fan, I think this is more enticing I think than Rhino's Revenge 2. That's just me. I think this is the better of the two.
This album is really good, but do you think that the production has dated at all? Because it is a little bit of its time, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you could say that. It does sound of its time. Maybe in part it sounds a bit compressed, the sound.
Yeah.
Which I often think Heavy Traffic does as an album. Everyone raves about Heavy Traffic being a great album, and it is. But I also thought Heavy Traffic sounds a bit, I would say compressed in. It doesn't expand out. The sound doesn't expand out on it so much. We say about the drummers earlier on about like Matt's sound.
Yeah.
To Charlie Morgan's drums. The tracks that Matt's on, the production sounds so different to, for me, the other ones. It just sounds more raucous.
Mm-hmm.
Which might be a reflection of when it was recorded. We don't know. But yeah, I do think I'd love to see this maybe remastered in some capacity if you'd ever do it. I don't know if the market's there for it. But I do think if they could remaster it somewhere and give it a bit more of a enhanced sound, maybe that would, it still sounds great now. It is of its time. We listen to 80s rock songs and go, they're rock classics, but they do sound like they're in the 80s. This isn't a criticism of the album, but it does sound of its time.
Yeah. I
would say. But thinking of Mike Paxman as the producer, thinking of Status Quo, you've got obviously influence. The year before, you've got Famous in the Last Century, which came out a few months before Rhino's Revenge.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. Which is it's an unusual year, really, because I think 2000 was a strange year for Status Quo in general as well. They get a lot of stick for Famous Last Century, whether people agree or disagree. It's one of them Marmite albums. Some think it's okay, some love it, some think it's the worst thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think Rhino's Revenge is an album is it stewed up in that 2000 era of Quo, with Jeff leaving the band, Matt joining, Andrew Bound taking time out for personal reasons, Paul Hirsch coming in. It was a bit of a strange 2000s for States Quo. It was a bit of a weird year in general, and this was kind of plonked in the middle of it all.
Do you think this is a high spot of that year?
Yeah, I'm about to say that. I think.
Yeah.
If you think this isn't to criticize Status Quo, it's not. But if you put Famous the Last Century and Rhino's Revenge, you can only listen to one. You'd pick Rhino's Revenge. I don't mind Famous the Last Century, but I'd still pick Rhino's Revenge over it. But Paxman's producing of the albums, the next stuff Quo related or anything related was Heavy Traffic. And I actually would think the production of Rhino's Revenge is better than Famous the Last Century or Heavy Traffic.
That's interesting. I was about to ask you, do you think that this was a stepping stone to Heavy Traffic? But actually, you're saying that this is possibly better in production
Yeah,
than that
I think
album.
production-wise, it sounds more polished, which sometimes people don't like to use the word polished. I know, because, but I think the sound a bit. I always think I say Heavy Traffic for me sounds a bit. Now, at the time, it didn't, but obviously things have changed and technologies and whatever else. But I always think Heavy Traffic sounds a bit. It never gave a true reflection of Status Quo's live sound at the time.
Right.
But I think record-wise, I think this has got quite a nice, crisp sound to it.
And of course, because it's got some of those familiar musicians playing on it, that means that is why it's open for such comparisons.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, if you listen to like Spend or Republican, this is just something I've often thought with Matt's sound on it, Matt's drumming, and it sounds very much like the Matt Letley you would hear live, the swinging arms and whatever else. But then you go to Heavy Traffic, I just think it sounds flat, Heavy Traffic, compared to his drumming on this. His drums sound much more, a bit more bite in them.
Yeah.
But that might be my pattern. That just could be the band thinking, we need to do it like this. I don't know. I've often thought that the guitars on this album, Rhino's Revenge, obviously it's different guitar players, there's a lot more effects as well.
Yeah.
I think at the time when it came out as a Quo fan, unless you listen to a lot of other music, we were getting a lot more guitar effects, vocal effects, which we're not really used to. So one of the things I think with Rhino's Revenge, that kind of, it takes us away in some ways from the Quo stuff.
Yeah. Into a different area.
Which isn't always a bad, I've had to sometimes go, it's not always a bad thing. It's not all about sugar stuff. Sometimes there's other stuff out there.
Indeed. Do you think that this sort of highlighted Rhino's contribution to Status Quo, like what his strengths were?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as somebody who's of the younger generation of fans, so for me, I grew up, I don't want to get into that whole thing with Status Quo and the before and after Lancaster Rhino fight. So for me, I grew up as the younger fan. So for me, Rhino was the bass player I seen in Status Quo.
Yeah.
It just made him, for me, more cool in some ways. He's good. Let's face it. It was always Francis and Rick that got the media coverage. There was never. I've always felt sorry for the others because they've always just been like, it was always Francis and Rick and the other three at the back in some ways or at the side. So for him to get a little bit of publicity for his own material at the time, I thought was quite cool. I mean, if I was going to criticise Eagle Records, I don't think there was very much, if any, promo for the album anywhere. I don't ever recall seeing it, apart from like the Status Quo stuff, advertising it. I don't recall ever seeing any kind of publicity for it, which was a shame.
They could have got him a position on a TV show somewhere, daytime TV or something.
Yeah, maybe now. Maybe if it was 20, maybe if that was released now, if we could put that album and the release now, go back in time or go, something like Planet Rock or one of the to give it a bit of a plug. I don't know, but yeah, I think the only thing I ever remember seeing at the time for this album was one of the magazines had like a little tiny new album out by Status Quo's bass player.
Yeah.
That was it. And then that maybe a review or two in like a magazine that I was sent a copy of, at the time, or someone said, I've got this cut out from a magazine, it's about Rhino's Revenge. And what I did see, it was always positive about the album. I think I remember seeing something on BBC, and I used the word eclectic, and it was described as an eclectic mix of songs, and I think that always sums it up as, that's always stuck for me, even 25 years later, it's an eclectic album.
I think so. Just a little bit on seeing them live at that point.
Yeah.
What was the set like apart from the material from this album?
Live at that time, I mean, it was a really... I seen them, I think 2001. It was 2001 I seen them for the first time in Crewe at the Limelight Club. The set was basically just the album. They
Right.
played the live set was just this album, and they did 2 other songs. Paper Plane, which he still says one of his favourite Quo tracks, and it was Revolution, Beatles cover,
Right.
which was really good. The whole gig was just the Rhino's Revenge album live, but it was good to see Matt. So it was Matt on drums, but the lineup was, it was Rhino, Matt Letley, Mike Caswell, who's a guitar player, he passed away. He was quite an established guitar player. I think he'd done like stuff for like Guitar Magazine and all the tutorial online videos. I remember meeting him after the gig because I was only 17, so I was 8, might have been 18 at the time at this point. So I just started seeing Status Quo as a band live. Matt was there, obviously Rhino was there. I was a bit kind of starstruck in this club, and there's literally 100 people maybe there, and it was so loud, but it was so good. Even now, I still get with Rhino's Revenge. Now it's good fun, but the band was sensational. It was a 4-piece band as well. I say 2 guitars, bass, and drums. And Matt. I've often said about Matt when he joined Quo. When you see Matt join Status Quo, his arms are flailing everywhere, and and it was like that at the Rhino's Revenge gig, only on a little small drum kit. So I remember walking in to the venue and seeing one of the Quo crew, and I looked at the drums and I thought, because back then there was none of this, let's go online and see what they're playing or let's see who the band is. No one knew, it was just a ticket. The actual gig I was seeing, it was Rhino's Revenge and State of Quo. So Rhino's Revenge opened the gig and then State of Quo did a set after them. But I remember it was a Sunday afternoon in Crewe, but bizarre than seeing, this really small club, in a converted church cellar. It was great, really good fun. And I managed to meet the band. I met Mike Paxman at the gig as an 18-year-old, a bit starstruck, seeing the now drummer for Quo and Rhino, being like a nervous wreck, saying, I can show you it. If I actually show you it now, I've got it here. You can see it. So I've got the CD that's on sign there, Rhino, Limelight. It was like the 6th of the 8th or the 6th of the 5th, 2001.
Wow.
I remember saying, probably like that going, will you sign that for me? Yeah. And I've got laughing now, I'm just looking at the inside. I remember getting, they can probably say, but I got in biro pen, Mike Paxman, Matt Letley, and Mike Caswell, the guitar player. So Mike Caswell, he was a great guitar player. There's a couple of videos on YouTube from that gig in Crewe.
Yeah.
Where you can see them playing, I think, Paper Plane, something surfaced recently. Mike Caswell was a great guitar. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was the original band. A bit looked like a. When you look at, there's very little picture wise, but he looks like a proper 80s rocker. This guy on guitar with like short sleeves and spiky-ish hair and gold. I think he had like a glitter gold Telecaster style guitar.
Right.
I think really groovy looking thing. Yeah, good fun. But I always say, people, you might diss Rhino or him being in Quo. I always say you need to go to a solo show and just see how good he is. We can also say, I'll say it to his face. If you're sitting next to it, say he's probably one of the best bass players I've seen in the flesh. He's so good. And his hands are like bloody shovels.
And if you can't get along to a gig, there is a live album available on the website.
The Charge Live,
Yeah.
Good.
Just to wrap up here, tell us about the guitars behind you for our video viewers.
These conveniently placed behind. So these are, obviously Rhino plays Status basses.
Yeah.
Obviously I play guitar. I'm not a bass player by any stretch of the imagination. So the brown one is a 1980s. So in the 80s, Washburn guitars did they had license from Status to make basically they look identical to Status, a normal state. They are Status basses basically, but made by Washburn.
Yeah.
So Rhino's basses have carbon fiber necks. These are wooden necks as opposed to carbon fiber, but you'll see. Let's get one off. Luckily enough, I took them to a gig, so I got Rhino, as you can see there. I asked him if he'd sign up for me. Great guitars. but they're getting very, very collectible and very expensive to buy. And Status guitars themselves are actually now starting to close down the business.
Are they?
As well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously Rick played them. Obviously Francis got Status guitars, but they used to make custom built guitars. They are mega money to buy a Status. You know, if you want to go and buy like a Rhino bass, I remember asking at the time how much for a Rhino bass, thinking £1,000 maybe. I think they cost me something like £2,500 for one. I was like, I got these pretty cheap. I'm not, these were. I just got them because I'm a guitar nerd as well, so I thought I couldn't have turned them down when I seen them for sale. Yeah, I would like to get the red one at some point. But yeah, they are fantastic basses. So I got that one signed. The white one kind of reminds me of the one you see in Rhino's album cover. No, but yeah, great guitars. I got them to sign them. There's another one upstairs of them. Great guitars. But I say I'm more of a six. Sounds silly, but I'd rather play 6 strings than 4. I kind of, I kind of just watched them play, and I was like, when I took them to him, I got him to sign. He was like, "Oh, these are nice." I was like, "Well, they're not bad." You know, I got them at a decent price off a guy. So
awesome.
The quirky, the part I call it part of the Quo-lection.
Yeah,
I call it the Quo-lection as opposed to the collection. Yeah,
and why
part
not?
of the fun of being a Rhino and Quo fan, eh?
Indeed. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Rhino's Revenge, which is 25 this year. Thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Cheers. Thank you.